Hi, friends. Hello, the world. Welcome back to this episode of Tools for Transitioning Humanitarians. And today, my topic is worry. And I really feel like we all need to understand our worries, why they're there, what they're doing to us, how they're affecting us in making decisions and making choices, in going for things that we like or going for things that we don't like. We go there anyway to distill the feeling of worry, right? So that's why I really wanted to dedicate a special episode on this as a way to show how it's a tool that we keep overusing, maybe, that we actually don't need to do that. And therefore, the first thing we need to understand is what it is and why we need to understand. I will give you several examples. And I want to break it down to you how it works, how it makes us do things, how it proposes us solutions that may not be solutions that we like, but we keep taking up on those solutions so that we feel not worried again, we feel peaceful again, we feel grounded, or we feel safe again. Therefore, we tend to want to get rid of worry as soon as possible and rely on the solutions that are not really solutions. And of course, we will talk about what to do with it, right? So that's the topic. Let's start with the first one is why we need to understand our worry individually. I'm sorry that you cannot really see some of the writing, but I will be reading out to you. I try to catch the good lighting so I can you can see my face, but it still feels like some of the things are not there. Don't worry. We'll cover through all of this. So let's start exploring why we need to understand our worry. What worry does to us, right? So worry mainly get us to the feeling or to the mode of energy saving mode, meaning that we don't really want to spend a lot of efforts or energy onto things because we believe that it may not work, because we believe that even if we do spend a lot of energy, the outcome will not be as much as we want. And therefore, we may get into this energy saving mode and trying to always go back to feeling safe so that we can get rid of this worry, right? Because our brain does not like that feeling, and our brain wants us to be safe, and therefore it always tries to get us to that place. And therefore, what we end up doing oftentimes is we end up compromising things that we otherwise wouldn't have compromised because we just want to feel safe, and therefore we may take up whatever job we don't even want to, but we feel like at least that will give us stability, at least that will give us safety, right? We tend to focus so much on the worst case scenarios. Uh, and what I was thinking about is that the more we focus on worry, right, the less we focus on the best case scenarios. Therefore, the more we focus on the worst case scenarios, the less we focus on the best case scenarios. And therefore, the result is that we may end up creating the worst case scenarios we don't like. Excuse me. So we may also end up generating a lot of the fear that we actually do not want to have in those moments. And we essentially stop going for what we want. And the reason I wanted to make this episode in the way that is very granular and so that you can really have this feeling of understanding your own worry is because I kept hearing lately in many of my conversations with humanitarians that there is this big budget cuts with organizations, and a lot of people feel affected by it, or they fear for their jobs, right? And therefore, this worry keeps coming up. Or maybe some people's job have already been cut, and they're thinking about how to go to the next thing, what to do. In all of these scenarios, worry is very natural, that it always comes. But what I want you to think about is how not to make decisions, not to allow your choices to be made based on the worry, but based on your true capacity, your a true expertise, or whatever you're wanting to do based on those feelings based on those feelings of trust instead of the worry. And that's why I really thought that if we can dive into understanding our worry and how it's affecting us currently in whatever the choices we're making, whether to leave to another organization or to leave the humanitarian sector altogether, or to even stay in the jobs that we don't like, even though maybe we wanted to leave, but then we decided not to do that because we got afraid and we started worrying about how we may not find another job because of these job cuts, right? So that's why in all of these scenarios, really getting intimate with our worry and how it's making us feel, what it is doing to us is so key. So let us dive into how it works. And I will be giving you an example of a job search, but of course you feel free to put any other context that you are currently worried about. And then as soon as you put the context in here, so maybe you're worried about how you will not be spending time with your loved ones now that you are moving from family duty station to a non-family duty station, right? Maybe this is one of your concerns. So you can put this here as well, or maybe you're worried about how you may be competing with so many other people and you feel like you don't really have any chance and you're worried about. So you can put any of those contexts here. And what we want to really understand is what we're thinking about that particular context, right? So in the case of the job search, one of the conversations I had recently with an amazing humanitarian who works in Poland, and she was telling me that she is in the job search of wanting to go to a family duty station because her family is currently with them, and she really likes this experience of always spending, like staying with the family, and the daughter is growing up but still small, and therefore she wants to be there for the daughter. She doesn't want to repeat the experience of the parents that she had, the experience of her own when she was a child, basically, right? And therefore, she was thinking whether it's realistic to really wish for a family duty station again, considering she's already in the family duty station, and also considering how many job cuts or all this budget constraints, and therefore, what are the options, right? So when I heard her talk about worry, these are the main beliefs that keep coming up for many of us, right? Which is that it will be hard now to move to another duty station that is the family duty station, for instance. Maybe in her case, the best case scenario is family duty station. Maybe for someone else, the best case scenario is duty station that she really enjoys working on, but feels like there are so many people competing for this, right? Basically, we have this feeling of I won't be able to get the job that I want. I won't be able to get the family with me, or I won't be able to get the job that I want and create a family that I want. Right. So these might be the thoughts that keep coming up that tells you essentially it won't work. Right. And then this creates the feeling of worry. And then when we are worried, oftentimes we believe the solution is to go for anything that we can find, right? That's very natural way of our brain's reaction. Our brains want us, of course, to be well, and therefore we just feel like in order to feel safe, in order to at least not go to the worst case scenario, we tell ourselves. And the worst case scenario for many of us may be jobless, or many of us going to excuse me, duty stations that are too far, or many of us may be worried that we will not be able to work for the same organization. So therefore, we then start compromising, right, by accepting or by wanting to go for whatever is available. That's the very first action or first solution our brain offers. And then we also tell ourselves that it could be worse. We tell ourselves that the worst part could be that, as I said, that we will not have any job to look for, or we will not be able to sustain our family, or especially if we're the only breadwinner in the family because our spouses uh, followed us in our duty stations, right? So we feel um, guilty for not taking care of our family. We feel maybe guilty for not being able to give our children what they deserve. There are a lot of these feelings that then make us feel like at least we will have a job and that's good enough. And then basically we try to go to our best case scenario, meaning we try to go to the job that we really like, but we approach it with the in the way that is like, well, I don't think it will work anyway, right? We approach it with a bit of a distrust or a skepticism, and we tell ourselves that we need to be realistic in this case. So you can see what worry does to us, especially what the type of solutions it offers to us. And we really want to understand if that is the solution we're going for, or we're just doing it because we feel like we can't really handle our worry, and therefore we start doing all of these things. Or maybe we don't even do anything. We just feel like, oh, we need to freeze, or we feel like we can't really change anything in the future anyway. So therefore, we may as well just wait and see. That might be another way that worry is showing up, right? So then what worry does not let us do, which is very interesting for every one of us to notice, is that it doesn't let us trust our expertise, our capacity, our abilities. It may even undermine our abilities. It may even undermine in the way that I heard someone else talk about how um, I see so many more experienced people going for the job that I'm going for. Obviously, I will not get it because in comparison to my experience and their experience, I have no chance, right? So these are one of the ways that we undermine our expertise and abilities, and therefore we don't even try to go for those jobs that we would otherwise would go. And then we would also what worry does is it doesn't let us keep working on the best case scenario because of the feeling that basically the worry, like if it was a flip chart, sorry, if it was like a chart, the worry goes in the minus side of things, and then we try to like get ourselves to the plus side somehow, right? And as a result, what we oftentimes do is we make things very hard because we keep worrying about everything that we go through. We then keep like worry does not stop, right? Worry can be about ourselves, about our family, about whoever else we're thinking about, our extended family, maybe. And then what it also ends up happening for us that we then make sure that we don't get the thing that we want to, or we won't. And then we just we just tell ourselves, well, you see, I told you so that it wouldn't work anyway, and then we just confirm that. So what to do is the next question. And I would like for you to think about when you are experiencing this worry, and as I said, that it's something that's very natural that most of us probably experience in such situations. But when we are experiencing that, we need to understand the solutions that we are coming up with in terms of like getting ourselves to the plus point from the minus point, right? If you're thinking about the chart, then I would like for you to think about the range that you create for yourself. And we're not neglecting any of the worry, or we're not neglecting worst case scenarios, but we're just visualizing for ourselves for a minute, for like 5 minutes if you can allow yourself to do it, is that to get yourself out of your spinning, basically, right? And for some people, spinning might be not so intense. For other people, it might be intense. So that's why I love the way that we can visualize things by writing down. So I'm a big fan of writing down. So I would like for you to make a range like this, and then just get curious as to what are the ways of worst case scenario that will be, right? One, two, three consequences, or one, two, three actions, or one, two, three ways you can get ready for it. Whatever the way that you want to treat this worst case scenario, get curious about that. And the same goes for the best case scenario. And and then also say, like, okay, how would that look like? The best case scenario, for instance, for this person that I'm talking about, is that she will be next to her daughter and her husband, and she has a contract of maybe 5 years in a country that she feels like she could do the work and make this change and contribute to the change. And in her daughter going to school, and she providing for the family, this is probably the best case scenario for her, right? So you can also think about what would be the best case scenario for yourself. The best case scenario for my life, as I was getting ready for transitioning, I had the same thing. What would be the worst case scenario and what would be the best one, right? For me, the best case scenario at the time was that I would, excuse me, live my love with my loved ones. I would be doing the job that I love, that I really deeply believe in, that I see the results of, the outcome of it. And at the same time, I continue living my lifestyle that I do, which is traveling, doing the things that I love outside of work. And most importantly, I think doing the work with the people that I love doing. Uh, and this was my best case scenario, and not worrying about the financial side of things, right? Excuse me, I don't know what's happening. So that was my best case scenario that I was treating at the time. And then I was thinking, okay, in order to go to that best case scenario, what are the things that I need to be doing? And we'll dive into details. But I'm just wanting your brain to have like options open. And then you can also say something in between. What would be in between for you, right? What's the worst case scenario? My worst case scenario at the time was that I would be jobless, that I wouldn't have any income, that I wouldn't be able to do the things that I want to do. I'm forced to go back to doing the job that I'm not necessarily in love with, or the outcome of it. And therefore, I would be feeling guilty for letting my family down, for not being able to keep the promises of taking care of them, whatever it is, right? So these were my worst case scenarios. So we have the like honest look at what is the worst case scenario that can happen, what are the best case scenarios, and what are the in between that we will probably also may land in. We don't know, but we're just getting curious about the overview of things, right? So now I would like for you to look at two ways, basically. So let's say that first you are creating the worst case scenario, and I love the way that we make this very intentional, because when we do things intentional, our brain is no longer in this fear-stricken way or in this constraining way. It's more like, huh, I mean, how would I create my worst case scenario? So we would get just curious out of curiosity, what would be, how we would create our worst case scenario and how we would create our best case scenario. And we are giving equal airtime to both. That's important, because we're basically creating to our fear brain a balance of a trust, and the trust is not there so much yet because the worry is overtaken it, right? So therefore, in order to make the trust enter and infiltrate a bit more into the worry zone, we are starting to entertain our brain with different ideas and different ways of looking at things. And one of the ways that we can look at it, okay, let us create the worst case scenario that we're thinking about, that we're jobless, or that we're going to a duty station that we don't like, or to an environment we don't like, whatever it is, or doing the job we don't like, how we would create it. and then write down all the actions of how you would create it out of feeling worried. Right, and we'll go into another tool that I will be sharing with you, which is also very fascinating. But basically, the thinking behind will be it's not working, meaning that the best case scenario that we're thinking is not working, so therefore we may as well go for whatever we can find, right? That's how we would create our worst case scenario. Worst case scenario is also created maybe by not doing anything and just freezing and then hoping for the best and then nothing happens. Maybe that's another way to create worst case scenario. Now we go into the result of creating best case scenario. Remember that the goal is to bring the trust and to start playing with it in terms of, okay, if I trusted myself and if worry wasn't the problem, then how would I go about creating what I really want, right? That's the part that we want to now increase. The previous one is we just took a look at, we looked at what is already and we reversed engineered in a way to say how we would create our worst case scenario to give ourselves a bit of a responsibility and a bit of a like playful, curious and playful and unusual way of unwinding our brain's fear. And here we're looking at, okay, now that we have unwound it, it's a bit like loose and we're a bit releasing worry. Now we're getting into, okay, if I hadn't have the worry, if I hadn't have this worry of, oh my God, what if it won't work? What if I can't make it? What if all of this? What if all of that? How would I make the best case scenario work? What are the actions I need to take? And how do I need to feel, right? In my case, most of the time, it's a feeling of trust that gets us to the best case scenario. And the thinking behind can be something like, I believe that I could create this result. I believe that I could create this result for myself, for my family, because I know what I'm capable of. I know how I can do things. Whatever it is that gives you this feeling of trust that keeps making you then take the action of going for the best case scenario. So I was curious to understand how it would be different in terms of our actions when we go for a worst case scenario and when we go for our best case scenario. And this is such a fascinating topic to me because I was thinking about in my own experience, right? So I thought about, okay, what could be the worst case scenario? And then I also thought about what's the best case scenario. And I really wanted to go for my best case scenario because I already was in the best case scenario in so many regards, right? I had a great job. I had a stability I wanted. I had amazing colleagues. I had a salary that was very good, right? So from best case scenario of my life at the time, going to worst case scenario didn't make sense to me at the time. So therefore, I always went for the best case scenario. But just for the forgetting your worry, unwinding and what is the word I'm looking for? Like loosening the worry, basically. I really want you to play around with it in different ways so that your brain gets different types of oxygen or different types of stimulus or different types of input into what are the actual actions that you would be taking if you were pursuing one or the other or both, right? What would be the actions you would be taking? And if you look at it, there are a lot of similarities in what actions we would take. But what I have noticed when I was doing this exercise is that when we work on the worst case scenario, we tend to relieve our immediate gratification side by just going for the next thing, right? Because if we go just for the next thing, then we feel relief, we feel not worried anymore. We feel like, okay, at least here I can be for some time. But then a lot of problems may come up afterwards because that wasn't really the scenario that we really wanted. And then we start getting into the suffering of, oh, this is happening. I can't believe this. And then we're not satisfied with work. We're not satisfied with our current life because our loved ones are not with us, whatever the case may be. And then we, like, even though we get the immediate relief and the boost of, okay, everything is fine, to the place of, oh my God, I can't believe this, right? That's when the worst case scenario is. That's what we tend to do. We tend to go for our immediate gratification or immediate feeling of safety, while the best case scenario requires us to um, look at a lot of the uh, like constrain ourselves to what we really want, at the same time feeling like, okay, we don't really we need to constrain and only go for things that we want to, and feeling a lot of uncomfortableness, but at the same time we feel like, okay, in the end maybe hopefully we'll go to the best case scenario, and then we feel better afterwards because that's really what we wanted to do. So if we look at the similarities, there are a lot of similarities in when we do things for worst case scenario versus for best case scenario. We always, like, the job search will be similar, except when we go for the best case scenario, we're only going for the things that we love instead of going for any job, right? We also need to deal with fear either way, because fear will come up and uncertainty will come up in terms of, oh my God, what may happen? Um, Maybe it will work, maybe it will not work. These will be happening in no matter which one we're going for. And then we may also need to say, uh, oh, sorry, I got it confused. Here it's supposed to be say yes to all, and here it is supposed to be say no to many of the job options, right? So we feel uncomfortable saying yes to all and then going through the interviews and then feeling like, okay, whether it will work or not, and then feeling also maybe that will not be um, the what we want, but we're doing it anyway and we don't like it. So all of those uncomfortable feelings come up here. While in the best case scenario, we only go for the things that we want, and therefore saying no to other options that are available will be very uncomfortable as well. And temptation of wanting to go for anything will be there all the time. So that's why restraining, constraining ourselves and focusing on the one that we really want will require us to trust ourselves a lot. And that feels not easy for many of us, instead of just going for whatever is available. And then um, in the worst case scenario, we will be doing the bare minimum, or we will be doing things that uh, will require us to do this because we're not really convinced that that's what we want to do, but we're doing it anyway, right? While in the best case scenario, we're doing it because we're so convinced we're going to do our best, we're going all in to do that work, because we know on the other side of things we will get what we really want to. So that's why I'm likely to do a lot more work and to write quality applications, and all of this is high there. So therefore, what I would like for you to think about is, okay, seeing all of this and you doing your own exercises, right? So these are the exercises that I have done, but doing your own exercises of, okay, if I go for a worst case scenario or if I go for best case scenarios, what is my worry playing a role in this? Excuse me. And if I really believe that I can go for best case scenario, what are the things I would be doing? What are the things I would be focusing on, while also giving space for my worry to be there, right? How would I do that? And being really, like, growing that muscle of trusting so much more of yourself to go for the best case scenario, I think will also help you understand that You don't need to be tolerating to just go for the things that you don't even want simply because you fear the worst. And you start developing this confidence, this feeling of, yes, I'm no longer available for any offers or any job opportunities. I'm only wanting to go for the ones that I really can make the difference or I can really contribute to making the difference. I have these type of conditions in place, and I'm wanting to do those things only because I really value my expertise, my brain energy, my health, my emotional health, and also my time with my children or my time with my loved ones or my time with a family that I want to create. And that will help you grow so much more and then be going for the best case scenario. And even if the best case scenario does not work, you will likely to get something that's not maybe in your radar, but at least you have developed that muscle, you have developed that skill of trusting yourself, dealing with fear, dealing with uncertainty, dealing with worry in the process of getting to what you want. And even if you may not succeed this time, next time it might be actually a lot better because you have learned how to do this. You have learned to only go for what matters to you and then say no to others. So, my dears, if you want to work on this, absolutely come coach with me. I would love to coach you to get through all of these worst case scenarios and best case scenarios and get you the plan of what works best for your situation, considering your desires of to be with the loved ones, with creating family, and at the same time doing the fulfilling work, doing the work that really matters to you. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful week. Talk to you very soon.